I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. I want to call this segment Why Tyree Nichols Will Never Be a George Floyd. George Floyd has been more memorialized. He's now St. George. And they're trying to put together a George Floyd law through Congress. And there's statues all over every place. George Floyd is more popular now than Dr. Martin Luther King. Pretty soon in the ghettos around America, they'll be naming George Floyd Boulevard, George Floyd Street. They'll be naming George Floyd schools, and they'll be naming George Floyd clothing underwear, George Floyd sneakers, and George Floyd baseballs, George Floyd basketballs, and George Floyd, automobiles. There's somebody, Elon Musk or somebody will make a car named George Floyd that will cry, they'll be probably cry mama or something like that. Anyway, but Tyree Nichols will never be George Floyd, because the reason why is because George Floyd was killed by Derek Chauvin, who was white. But Tyree Nichols looked up at 5 black police officers, his age. They're all the same age. There couldn't be more than 1 or 2 years the difference between all those police officers of the Scorpion squad and Tyree. And he looked up and said, what? Black lives don't matter. Now, let me see you leave that there for just a second. And I want to try to say something. You can, first of all, you can say, Pastor Manny, we disagree with you. Pastor Manny, you're just wrong. And you ain't for the black man. You're a big, stupid preacher up there in Harlem. You're a big dummy. You can call me that if you like. Go ahead. Don't you touch me. But you can disagree with me. But what I want to say to you is this, is that there's a serious problem here. Tyree Nichols was killed by 5 black people. And the reason why he ain't gonna be, when black people kill black people, that don't go nowhere. That don't mean nothing, because black people don't care nothing about Black Lives Matter. If you think that black people killing black matters as killing black people, go to Chicago this Friday night and see how many black people are killed and how many you'll hear about it. But if one white person kills a black person, see, your life ain't worth nothing unless it's connected with white people, which is what I'm going to get when I get to Don Lemon and I get to Eddie Gloyd and all these other people, Myra, Lyra, and all these. Their lives are connected to white people. They're puppets for white people. That makes them important. But the thing of it is that there's an effort where there could be, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to agree with me. You say you like to listen to me. It could be you like to listen to me. But let me tell you, while you're listening, there could be as much a network that is organized by the LGBTQ and by the pinch-nosed Negroes to make sure that my voice doesn't get out. And they are actual professionals. They're specialists at dealing with black folk and bleeding heart white folk to make sure that Manning is not heard. Don't let him get heard. And the billions of dollars that go in, I'm making, listen, every time I do the Manning report, and some days I just don't feel like getting up. Some days I just feel like I want to stay in bed. Though I'm tired. But I know that every day that I get up and I speak on the Manning report, or I preach at the pulpit of power, or I do the Trust in the Lord hour, the open, I know they're going to spend millions, if not ultimately billions of dollars, to stop that one message from reaching the minds and hearts of a people who will be set free. I know that. And I'm motivated. Listen to me. You don't have to believe me, all right? You don't have to believe me. You don't have to, but just listen to me. And you can call me kooky, crazy, or whatever you want to call me, this, that, and the other. Go ahead. I'm not going to fall out with you. I'm not, if you call me that. But you do know that evil things take place. You know that there are voices that they want to silence. And I am the #1 voice on the planet today that the powers that be want to silence. Now, you don't have to believe that. You don't have to believe that. You don't have to believe it. But I'm talking and you're listening. And so I get up every day whether I feel like doing this or not. Now, most days I do feel like doing it. I enjoy doing it. This is my gift. My talent. I mean, I can do this in my sleep, quite frankly. But some days I just want to, just go to the beach or something. You know what I'm saying. But I do it anyway because I know every day I speak, they got to try to find a way to make sure this message does not get heard by people who might begin to listen to the fact that these 5 black police officers killed this black man. So reforming police is not going to happen. Putting a black police chief in the city ain't going to happen, like New York and Memphis or Chicago. It ain't going to. Black people are still going to be killed by police because they are black and they're cursed. See, you can put all the black mayors, you can put all the black presidents, you can put all the black whatever it ain't going to stop one killing of the next black man where the whole damn city has black police officers. Black police are going to kill black folk more than white police officers will. What you need to do, talking about having a talk, Joe Biden the other night in the State of the Union said, I've never had to talk with my son Bo and whoever the hell else, Hunter. Put your hands on the street, get stopped by the police, put your hands on the wheel and act like, whatever the deal is I've never had to have that talk. The problem is, the real talk is that you need to tell that needs to be had across America is that black people kill each other. And they kill each other because they're cursed, they're economically undeveloped, their minds don't understand the way the world works. And as a result of that, they're at the bottom of the world's social register. And as a result of being at the bottom, you're going to get stepped on. You're going to get stepped on if you're at the bottom. And black folk been at the bottom in America for years. And if you're at the bottom, you're going to get what you got to do. You can't, putting black folk, when you put a black person in the charge of New York City or Chicago or Houston or San Francisco or Los Angeles, the person you put in charge is still black. It's still black. And black people going to get stepped on because they're at the bottom of the roster. They're at the bottom of the barrel. And when you're at the bottom, you're going to get stepped on. That's just all there is to it. Listen, putting black people, even putting a black president ain't going to stop because the black president is black and black people get stepped on. So here's what you got to do. You got to figure out, well, that's true. Putting black people in power. By the way, in the next segment, in this segment, I'm going to run a couple of segments about where the liberal bleeding heart media is searching for other people to write about how to solve this problem. Since the march of Dr. King, life has not gotten better, it's gotten worse, and everybody's willing to admit that. And so what's the next solution? And I'm going to let you listen to some of these bleeding heart liberals on these, if you will, racist television programs. But the one truth that needs to be told, that black people, no matter how many black police officers, how many black senators, how many black judges you get, ain't gonna stop one black baby from suffering from the absence of the father, ain't gonna stop one black woman from being lonely at night by a man and men who don't know how to love them, ain't gonna be one black community gonna be built to look something like Ho Chi Minh City or to look like Dubai. It ain't gonna never happen as long as they stay black and keep thinking black and talking black. The blacker they talk and the more they talk about blackness, the more they talk about black reformation, the more they talk about black politicians, the raggedier their cities get. The more their men run away from the women and leaving them lonely and cold at night. The more black talk, the worse things get. The more black talk, the more black people sink to the bottom. The more black talk they get, the more black people get stepped on. The more black officials, the more black officers. Tyrone, if you will, Trayvon Martin was the first template of the first black president getting killed by being black. And the one conversation is not to have the conversation that you got, that Joe Biden with his lying old self talking about putting your hands on the steering wheel. The one conversation we got to tell black people, you are your own problem, and you're going to have to go to God. You're going to have to go to heaven, the God of heaven, to be able to straighten out your situation. Keep on. We gonna get a black, we got a black judge, Ketanji Brown Jackson, we got a black Supreme Court justice, married to a white man. Married to a white man cause she know what the black man gonna do. And so if she was really for the black folk, she wouldn't be married to a white man. That's right. That is right. About half a brain. You say, well, Pastor Man, you're a misogynist or something. You don't believe in intermarriage. No, listen. I'm not against intermarriage. I'm against interracial hatred. I'm against using a black face to be able to gain power and not do nothing with it by telling the truth. That's what I'm against. And listen, there ain't no black man out there can marry that judge. Ain't no black man ever ask her for a date. You mean to tell me that only a white man can ring her bell? I know that ain't true. And I'm not a racist. I'm not pejorative about. We're trying to keep it real. That's all. So here's the deal. I'm going to do this. So the Tyree Nichols will never become a George Floyd because he killed by black people. And the one thing you have not heard these people on television talking about, they've not raised the question, well, wait a minute now. So well, maybe it isn't that we ought to call all these white police officers racist and hate-filled and whatnot, because black police officers do the same damn thing that the white police officer does. Why is that so? And then one other thing is that I get up every day, and I have to tell you, I could spend my days in leisure, but I get up every day, and here's the counter. I know that the algorithms on Facebook, YouTube, and everything else want to make sure that they don't share my message or put it in such a light that it'll get picked up by hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, they if you will, put a rule on it. The little word I'm looking for a restriction so it doesn't go anywhere, so I don't get hurt. Now, wasn't all that was I used to be able to post and get 1 million views a day. But the thing of it is that, and here's what I want to say to all the algorithm people and all the haters. Okay, so you're telling me that my voice is dangerous, and so therefore you don't spread my word on your systems, your algorithms, like you spread all kind of other nonsense, so that hundreds of thousands of people hear every somebody else's. You restrict mine. Is that what you're doing? So you are saying to me, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, you are saying to me that my voice is a threat. In other words, like China controls what's heard in China from Americans, and like TikTok has a whole different platform for China than it does for American youth, that for American youth, TikTok is spreading fentanyl, spreading sex, spreading crime, all kinds of LGBTQ stuff, rebellion. TikTok is spreading that throughout all the young people in America. But in China, that is restricted, and you only get things about mathematics, about development, and so forth. So that's what y'all are doing to me. Now, those of you who disagree, I think that somehow or another I'm speaking hyperbolically. You don't have to listen to me. You tell me. I'm James David Madden. Have you noticed yet? I'm the Lord's servant. Haven't you noticed that yet? You still hoping someday I'm going to fizzle like a vapor in the wind? No, I'm here. I'm here. So here's the thing. And I'm going to get on to some of these Alicia Mendez and this old boy Japheth boy from up there in Massachusetts. Is the thing. If I quit, that means you can spend your time and energy somewhere else, and you can be released of the fears. What on earth would happen if black people started listening to Pastor Manning and calling themselves Hamites? Would we lose control of our nation? Would we lose control of the pinch-nosed Negro? Would we lose money? When Kanye West cut out from Adidas, and they're looking at now, both Adidas and this other Nike are looking at closely over the next couple of years, $1 billion in loss, because for whatever you want to say, Kanye West, you can say what you want about him, and they did this and the other. Kanye West brought billions of dollars to Adidas and Nike. And they know there's nobody else that can. So the loss of money. So what would happen if people started listening to Pastor Manning? And I know that they have the controls and the algorithms to keep people from listening to me. I know that. But the thing I also know is that I'm going to keep doing it because they're going to have to fight me every day. They're going to have to fight every day. They'll spend millions every day. And occasionally somebody like a Eddie Gloyd, may hear me. Occasionally, one of these pinch-nosed Negroes may hear me. Occasionally, one of these Negro mayors like Pharaoh Eric Adams or that Sylvester boy down there in Houston occasionally will look up and say, damn it, especially Eric Adams, who's a police officer, former police officer himself, occasionally will say, this ain't working. All this black election, all this black politician, it ain't working. It ain't working. Black people are still dying, still poor. Black children don't have fathers. Black people are going to the shelter. White people taking their neighbor. This black politician, this Black Lives Matter, there's no justice, no peace. It ain't working. And we're part of the problem. They might one day, Lord have mercy, what happens? They kill him. I believe in my heart. If Eric Adams woke up one day and said, wait, this ain't working, had a black president, we're worse now than we ever were. People are bigger fools now, black people, bigger fools now. This black politician, this Black Lives Matter, this no justice, no peace, this Al Sharpton shenanigans, the Undertaker and the buzzard, Al Sharpton, the buzzard, Ben, the Undertaker crump. This ain't working. It ain't working. 150 years, it ain't working. What happens when someone rises up and says that, if Eric Adams rose up and said that, they'd kill him. Eric Adams had an accident. Yes, there was an accident. He was driving, his driver was driving, and his car that he was driven in got ran over by a garbage truck. And how unfortunate our black mayor, such a young and tender age, is now with us. All the city of New York, if he ever stands up and quotes Pastor Money, that's what they're going to do to him. I'll tell you that right now. And the rest of them too. If they ever stand up and quote me, what's going to happen to them? But here's my joy. Two things. One is the Lord's on my side, and I'll get back to that because I know you don't believe in the Lord either. But the other thing is every day God give me the strength to stand up, they're going to have to fight. Every day that I make a statement, they're going to have to fight it. They cannot go to sleep on anything that I say or do. They cannot go to sleep. They can't go to sleep on the fact. And when that thing jumped off down there with Tyree Nichols, those 5 barbaric, animalistic, hate-filled, racist dogs, police officer killed that boy Tyree Nichols, say, how on earth are we going to handle it? Because this is black on black. How are we going to handle this? Can somebody help? How can we cover this up? So they bring out the black chief of police. She runs out there real quick, and less than a hop before you can turn around and say Humpty Dumpty, she fires them and then tries them on. Would that cover it up? Would that get black people? Because everybody know if these white police officers were white, they would have never been fired. They would have never been indicted. And the footage from them body cams, the police department will still be reviewing. Well, the FBI is still reviewing the footage, and we're not able to release it as of yet. But as soon as it becomes available, we will release the footage so we can know what really happened at that traffic stop. We will really know whether or not Tyree Nichols grabbed for the police officer's gun. But right now, it's still if it was white people, had these 5 officers been white police officers, the narrative would have been, well, you're still under investigation. And we can't comment on matters that are still under investigation, and we're unable to release the footage of the video cams because right now the matters, we have put some of the police officers on desk patrol, but that's only lasts for 15 days. They can go right back to the street again. And we're going to work all this out because we are for justice, and a young man has lost his life, and these 5 police officers said that he did all these things. And so, and 3 years from now, the truth may come out. But they said, how are we going to control this black police officer? Because this don't fit our narrative. We got to blame white folks for everything. So bring in a black police, brought in that black woman down there from down there. She's a police chief down in Memphis, right? Fired them. Fired them like they stole something from Mother Teresa. She fired them so quick, heck, before they could change their uniform, the pink slip was on their desk. And now they're indicted. Ain't gonna go to trial. And they'll be calling for the death penalty. Because we can't let this, we got to somehow or another, black people might wake up and say, wait a minute, putting black people in any kind of office don't mean nothing. In fact, things are getting worse. We got to hear what the good honorable Pastor Manning is saying. He's speaking the truth. Anyway. All right, so it's going to be a very long session, have you noticed? So you're still here? Well, praise God, you're still here. Some other people got off the train with me about an hour ago. Anyway, so here's what I want to do now. There are a couple of people, Alicia Mendez, and she's going to, some idiot that wrote a book or something, I don't know who his name, some got some kind of crazy name, right? And his thesis is this, or her thesis, I don't even know what the hell I heard. The thesis is this, is that this whole thing about developing black politicians and developing laws to protect black people, it ain't working. It ain't working, and it's clear it ain't working. So we need to look for something else. So I'm going to let you listen to it. This guy who actually makes a statement, and Alicia Mendez says yes, everything, all right, okay, go ahead. Y'all, I'm going to try not to interrupt y'all, right? I'm going to let y'all listen to it. But here's what you want to hear. You want to hear this person say, all that stuff going all the way back to W.E.B. Du Bois, all that stuff going back to Dr. King, it ain't working. It ain't hardly working. In fact, it's making things worse. Okay, Mr. Engineer, roll it. Take a look at this, everybody.
Dr. Kendi, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to talk to you specifically because you do now have this book about being a young anti-racist, and I am thinking about this conversation about policing in the context of the conversation about Governor Ron DeSantis not wanting AP AFAM history in the state of Florida, and in so much tinkering with the College Board that the College Board itself decided to change the parameters of its curriculum. Can you talk about policing in this country? Can you reform policing in this country without students having an education, a fundamental understanding of this country's history?
That was the dumbest question I've ever heard.
I don't think you can. And I think part of the reason why many people continue to tinker around the edges of American policing, thinking that that's going to lead to less people dying, is because they don't have an understanding of the history of American policing, that it emerged during slave patrols, that it is in many ways thrives on the idea that Black and brown people are dangerous. And those police officers are there to quote, keep us safe, when indeed they create all sorts of danger for those Black and brown people. And so if you don't understand the history of American policing, it's hard to understand the history of American racism.
Mr. Doctor, whoever you are. You ever notice how they like to use black and brown? Well, who's the brown people? Because you identify all black people, Hamites, black people, African Americans, black. Are you talking about Latinos or somebody? You know, you're talking about Muslims? When you say black and brown, who's the brown people? I know who the black people are, who the brown people? Then he uses a whole lot of convoluted words, that unless we're understanding the police or the history of police of policing in America, is that fewer young men were killed before the civil rights movement. Fewer young men were killed before all this so-called civil rights and elected. Fewer black men died at the hands of police officers. Fewer black men went to prison. Fewer black families. If you want to know the history, Mr. Whoever the hell you are, go ahead, Ms. Engineer, go ahead.
History of American racism, it's hard to understand the history of the United States.
Dr. Kendi, our friend Wesley Lowery has a beautiful piece in The Atlantic that I hope that all of our viewers will read. And he writes, for all of her clarity and grace, Memphis Police Chief Davis is a breathing reminder that systemic problems will not be solved by representational victories.
Oh, hold it right there. That's exactly my point. Well, this fellow in the Atlantic, whatever his name is, writes that the police Davis in Memphis is a scream. She's actually a national siren that by just putting black people in office ain't gonna solve the problem of black people being killed by police. End of story. Back it up just a little bit, Ms. Engineer. Just back that. This was written by the author. You forgive me. This story ran a couple of weeks ago, so I didn't make notes and have so many other things to say. But listen, go ahead, and we're going to try to catch all this. What you're going to hear her say is that it is now being reported that having black politician, black president, black police officer, black police chief, black governor, black mayor does not stop the killing of black young men, and because that's not the answer. Go ahead, Ms. Cindy, go ahead. Everybody, listen up again.
States.
Dr. Handy, our friend Wesley Lowery has a beautiful piece in The Atlantic that I hope that all of our viewers will read. And he writes, for all of her clarity and grace, Memphis Police Chief Davis is a breathing reminder that systemic problems will not be solved by representational victories. The solution to police violence is no more the hiring of black cops than the solution to mass incarceration is gender diversity among prison guards. I think people have looked for answers, Dr. Kendi. They have looked for programs, for trainings, for things that they believe can change the system, and are now reckoning with the fact that those answers are not sufficient.
Got that right. You got that right.
Indeed, and Wesley, in his excellent piece, pointed out
the biggest phone I've ever seen one.
In Memphis,
so
you had a
backtracking on what his own thesis is.
Police chief, you had a majority black police force, you had de-escalation training, you had body cameras, you had a policy to intervene, but still, Tyree Nichols is dead. They had passed all of the reforms that people claimed was going to stop people from being killed at the hands of the police. And so at some point,
you forgot to mention
we have to realize that there's something deeper, that there's something more fundamental that needs to be changed and eradicated.
Right,
and that's why so many people are questioning, if not outright rejecting, the idea that police can be reformed.
I am, of course, intrigued by your new book, How to Be a Young Anti-Racist, in part because I am a mom. I am raising two girls. These are conversations. They're still pretty little. I know that we are going to have. I mean, talk to us about how this book and this work is fundamentally different and in many ways the same as your first book, How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Well, it's what makes it the same is many of the stories of my own journey, particularly as a youngster, coming to grips with the ideas that caused me to think black people were dangerous as opposed to
hold it. You know, the first guy, this guy's, you know, black people are dangerous. Ask what's that boy that LeBron James. LeBron James, why you live in that white neighborhood? It isn't that you can't find gracious living. Why when black folk get money and can afford it, why did black people leave Harlem once they got a silk stocking and got a good job? Why did they leave Harlem and move to white neighborhoods in New Jersey? Because they didn't want to live around dangerous black people. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. And so you're trying to say that black people aren't dangerous. You know that they are. Now, you don't have to, if you will, make them barbaric, but let's not hide the truth. Hell, it's dangerous to live around black folk. And here you are, you don't know nothing about nothing. You wrote a book and you learn how to put some fancy words together, making you seem like you're intelligent. You don't know the weight of a toad's turd. You ever notice how these guys, how they all try to, all these structures, this and that and the other, and one thing after the other, and the history of this until the history of that. You ever notice that? Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Engineer.
Many of those stories and many of that journey itself is still there, but Nick Stone, my co-author, completely rewrote the book and added a voice that would be relevant to young people, because young people are trying to understand what happened to Tyree Nichols. Young people want to be part of a force of change, and we're trying to guide them in that direction with How to Be a Young Anti-Racist.
The core question in Wesley Lowery's piece about policing is what a racial reckoning will actually require, right? That we've seen a number of times when it has seemed as though the energy is there, the attention is there, and then you have something like the killing of Tyree Nichols that reminds you that the progress has not been made legislatively, policy-wise, reform-wise to actually...
No progress made whatsoever. You got a black judge. You said you had a black president. You got a black mayor. You got a black police chief. Got black mayors, but no progress. There's no progress. The killing, the beat, in fact, it has accelerated. right? And by the way, MSNBC and these other people, they need eyeballs. They need people watching them, and so they can sell their products and ask for thousands of dollars in advertising. So they got it. Who can they get? Who can they get to listen to them? They stoke racial conversations that, and so they can. But they're not genuine. They don't give two damns about what happened to black people. I can tell you that right now. Right now. In fact, they don't give two damns about what happened to white folk. And you might want to consider Governor DeSantis down in Florida, and you might want to consider some of the things that are going on with respect to our nation, recognizing that our nation is going to hell in a handbasket with all these J5 people, Democrats and liberals and LGBTQ and all these others trying to foment, we got to teach critical race theory. Hell, black people don't know about no critical nothing unless they got shot in Chicago and there's guys in critical condition. That's not when black people use the word critical. They don't mean to apply the critical race theory. What the hell does that mean to anybody that's black? It means when they hear black people hear critical, he's in the hospital, he's critical. Tell everybody he's in the hospital, he's on critical list. That's all the people that know about critical race theory. What the hell? They're trying to all these fancy terms. Now they got this term called woke, right? DeSantis is right. Gonna start spreading all this stuff by all these twisted-minded, many of them sex-perverted black people who now want to start writing a curriculum to help. Listen to James Weldon Johnson and Langston Hughes and Nora Zara Hurston and a bunch of other people who have been able to come along, and while they understood the problems of racism, were not as freaks like these freaks that are coming around now that want to impose woke. No. Want to impose critical race theory. No, and hell no. No, all you want to do is just spread strife. And by the way, if it worked, if it was happening, you already had a black president, you got a black Supreme Court justice, you got two, you got black governors, and it ain't working. And now you want to spread more? You want to spread it deeper and more by coming up with different names? Name critical race. How smart is that? Critical race theory. I use the word theory like you're some damn Einstein person. The critical race theory, the theory of relativity, try to sound smart. What the hell? And then there's a woke. Woke what? Who woke up? The sleeping giant? Who woke up? Anyway, all right. I've had enough of her. Let's go to this other woman who I don't even know, wrote a book called Cast, right? I don't know how much we have of that. I think it was a pretty long interview. Lawrence O'Donnell didn't have nothing to report on the other night, so he brought this one woman on. Kept on for about a half an hour because he had nothing else to bring. So they're talking about racism. Racism always get, always get the liberals and always get black people. So I don't know how much of this we have, but this is another insult to anybody's intelligence that he would have interviewed this woman in the first place. And by the way, they say she's a Pulitzer Prize, #1 bestseller, and so forth and so on. This stuff is stinking to high heaven. All this patronizing of black folk, patting black people on the head and say, you're a good boy, you're a good girl. Go ahead, Miss Senator, go ahead. Let's turn everybody's stomach inside out. Listen to this nonsense.
Isabel Wilkerson writes, a caste system relies on strife and inequity to sustain itself. It programs people to believe they have no stake in the well-being of those they have been told are beneath them, those they are told are unworthy, undeserving. It makes for a less magnanimous society, a built-in us versus them distance between groups. Because of the caste system, we more readily turn against one another. Because of caste, we insufficiently protect our own. Because of caste, along with other breakdowns in society, our democracy is in danger. And we're back with Isabel Wilkerson.
All right, so before we hear this woman, the first time you probably heard the word caste, maybe you were in school or something, maybe in church, I don't know. And somebody told you that in India, while all Indians are pretty much the same color, some of them have different variations of the Hindu religion, some Buddhist and mostly Hindu and some Muslim, that they had a caste system. That is to say, based on the economics, where if you lived in one neighborhood, you were caste, And so if you ever heard about caste, it was about India, right? Now, hear this woman here, this Isabel, whatever her name is saying that America has a caste system. No, it doesn't. But they're just running out of things to say about racism. It used to be civil rights, equality, all that stuff, all that genre. I have a dream, and I want my. But now it's all bring a new language, try to figure out that ain't working. Civil rights ain't working. I have a dream ain't working. Let's say America now has a caste system, and then she writes a book. And the New York Times makes it a #1 bestseller. She gets on this television program promoting this absolute BS. In fact, it's an insult to India. People in India, Gandhi ought to rise up from the dead. It's an insult to say what goes on in America is a caste system. It's just plain racism based on reality. No caste whatsoever. If there is a caste system, it's high yellow blacks against dark-skinned blacks and brown blacks. And if there's a caste, the caste is some blacks are real black, some blacks are brown, teasing tan, some blacks are high yellow. That's the damn caste system. But anyway, all right. Let's hear. Here she go. Watch this. Watch it. All this language. Watch this. Go ahead.
This new updated version takes us into the present day battle for the future of American democracy in a way that I didn't anticipate in the first read of the book.
Yeah. I think that what we're seeing right now is the responses to a configuration in our country's demographics that no one alive could ever anticipate. We don't know what it's like to be in an inversion of the historic demographics of our country, with one group, the dominating majority group that's been in power and dominant majority for as long as there's been in the United States. And the anticipation that the census has set us up for, the anticipation that by 2042 or 2045, that historic majority would no longer be the majority.
Now, hold on. What she's saying is that white people are now realizing that by 2045 or something like that they are in the majority now. 330 million people living in America, that white people are in the majority, and within another 20 years, they're going to be in a minority in their own nation. That's not true. And I've done some reporting on that as a thesis, but I've never validated whether it be true or not. But it's not true. It isn't true. Here, let me say something to you. Black people, now they're Hamites, they call themselves Black African America, make only as at best 12% of the 330 million people that are in America. So at best, maybe 36 to 37 million. The other 300 million people are other than black people. So black people are the smallest minority. Listen to this. Black people raise the most hell, but they're the smallest minority. Latinos make up, 27% of, so there are twice as many Latinos, if not 3 times. For every black person in America, there are at least 3 Latinos, whether it be Puerto Ricans, or whether it be Mexicans, or whether it be Spaniards, or not Spaniards, but Dominican Republics or Cubans. So for every time you see a black person, there are 3 times as many Latinos. And then every time you see a black person, there are at least 12 times as many white people in America. Now, they're saying that white people by 2025 are going to be a minority. Well, who's going to be the majority? Latinos? I don't think so. By the way, black people have been aborting children, stop having babies, and so they're not growing. They're the small at the bottom. They're at the bottom of there's not another minority of people in America that are small. Black people are the smallest minority, and now they raise a lot of hell to be sure, but they are a minority, and they're getting smaller. So now she's saying that, the caste system is this, that white folk are going to wake up one day and discover that they are in a minority in their own nation founded by the great white fathers. Go ahead, Ms. Daniel. Listen to some more of this nonsense.
Also had the first rumblings of that with the 2020 census, which indicated that for the first time in American history, the historic white majority actually fell in number, still the majority by far, but it fell for the first time in our country's history. And I believe that all of these things are connected. We're facing an existential crisis as to who we are as a nation, as to what kind of country we wish to be. I think that there's already a growing sense of alarm on the part of some people, fear, insecurity, and resentment, and a desperate effort to maintain dominance.
You say in the book this era is the country's karmic moment of truth?
The karmic moment of truth as to who we are going to be as a country. One of the things that I think is so powerful about this as a lens through which to understand ourselves is that if you think of ourselves as our country as like an old house, and that old house has been around for many, many generations, as we know, it's 246 years old. And when you have an old house, you know that the work is never done. You never think that, you get a new hot water heater, you get a new furnace, and you're done. You never have to think about it again. An old house.
Hold. There are a couple of things. One is we already know what America is. America's not trying to figure out who she is. America knows who she is. That's the first thing. She's using this language that America doesn't know who she is. She's struggling to discover her identity. That's a bunch of malarkey. And then she used this metaphor of America being an old house. Obviously, she's not very historically accurate or astute. America is the youngest. Listen to this. Watch how ignorant this is. This is pure natural born ignorance coming from this woman in this red, whatever it is she got on, Isabella, whoever she is. This is natural born, patent ignorance. America, my brothers and my sisters, is the youngest nation on planet Earth. Did you know that? America. It's only 242, 3, 4, 5 years old. That's it. Listen, England has had several thousand birthdays. And so have the nations of Africa or Russia. China swears that they can trace their ancestry back 10,000 years. 10,000 years in China? India swears they can chase it back 7,000 years. And America's only been around for 250, and this witch is saying that America is an old house? Come on now. I mean, America ain't even 300 years old yet. Hell, Cuba's older than America. I mean, and you just sit there like I'm some professor. I have authority. New York Times has written me as a Pulitzer Prize winner, and so I can say America at 250 years of age is old. Hell, you got people living in Africa that are 250 years, in Kenya, or in China, or in Europe, or in Latin America, in Brazil. That are nations that can trace their ancestry back thousands of years, and America is a little bitty old baby still in diapers at 250 years old, and she said, it's an old house. Listen to this. Go ahead, Miss Engineer. Watch this nonsense.
Constantly needs work. And when you take possession of an old house, and we as the current occupants of the United States of America essentially are the occupants of this old house, then it's not something that you get emotional about. It's not something that you go blaming and assigning shame. This is something that you roll up your sleeves and you figure out what is it going to take to get this house in shape so that it can survive and thrive for many, many generations to come. That means looking at every single system. I view myself as sort of the building inspector of this old house called America. And in that case, you go in and we are not the ones who built the uneven pillars and joists and beams or the frayed wiring or the corroded pipes. But now that it is in our possession, it is our responsibility.
I watch Lawrence O'Donnell from time to time. I do. He comes on at 10 o'clock at night. And, there are times I just can't stomach Fox. I just can't do it. I don't watch Newsmax. I think it's a ripoff. I just can't stomach all the hyperbole. I understand what Fox is trying to accomplish. I understand their fight for America, and they got to take it to the DEFCON 3. I know that. But I just can't stomach it. I can't. Occasionally I watch Tucker Carlson. Occasionally I watch, some of the others, Hannity, but I just, come on now, man. I know what you're trying to say, and then you're promoting Donald Trump as the best president America's ever had. I mean, come on now. You can say it was a good one, but you're not the best, and you keep promoting that kind of stuff. So occasionally I'll watch Lawrence O'Donnell. He's on MSNBC, right, 10 o'clock at night. And usually he brings a pretty analyzed and interesting take on and truthful take on what's going on whether it be in the court system or whether it be in racial issues or whatever. But here, I mean, this woman is the bottom of the barrel. And I'm in, Lauren Showdown, you ought to be ashamed of yourself putting this woman before your audience. She's the bottom of the barrel. I don't care what the New York Times says. New York Slimes, New York Times, Line, New York Times. You know, they'll give anybody say they're writing books because there are very few people that write books these days. A whole lot of people out there promoting books, but there are very few people that write books. I've been around the barn. Can I talk to y'all for a second? Years ago, people used to write books. I mean, there were authors who actually wrote The Old Man and the Sea. There are actually authors who wrote the first Uncle Tom's Cabin. There are people who used to actually write books, like Shakespeare. There are people, Paul Laurence Dunbar writing songs. There are people who used to actually write stuff. These people aren't writers anymore. I haven't heard of a writer of recent times. People don't write books anymore. They conjure, they pull, they take other people's messages, they conjure and they put it all together and they put it in a book. But there's no writing, there's no authenticating, there's no original ideas. Anyway, so I've had my say. Let me say this too, again. I understand I'm in a great battle, and I'm honored to serve the Lord and serve God's people at this level. I'm honored to be the one that the media fears. I'm honored to be the one that an organization as powerful as Facebook are afraid to let me on to their audience. That an organization as powerful as YouTube is, they are afraid to let me speak to their audience, that they are actually suppressing free speech. I'm honored. I am honored that they see me as a real, clear, and present danger to the BS that goes on in America called racism and religion. I'm honored. And as I said before, there are days when I feel like I'd just like to go sit in the park, you know, and have a nice lunch somewhere. Elizabeth and I can sit down and have do like the white people do, have some Chardonnay and some white wine. Days I just love to do that, but I get up anyway and I come to this desk because I know every day I speak, they have got to counter. They cannot allow one day of my speaking to go undealt with. And the millions of dollars that they have to spend, and the people who they have to bring, because occasionally some student might hear me or some politician might hear me and say the man is speaking the truth. And more importantly, the Japheth people, they're afraid that the Japheth people are going to hear me. They're so glad I've gone ahead and spoken the truth about Trump because they know that most Japheth people know I speak the stomped down truth. They know that. But because I don't endorse Trump, who bow down to the altar of the LGBTQ, they figure, well, I don't have to worry about the Japheth people coming to rescue him or coming to get him on Newsmax or AON. Or they're not going to do it because everybody knows everybody white and their brother knows he's anti-Trump, called Trump the tribulation, that he's a servant of Satan. So they ain't going to let him on their broadcast. So we have to worry about that. But we do have to worry. We do have to worry that he might get heard by some people that can actually derail the whole process of the Democrat Party, the LGBTQ, and a bunch of others. So I'm here, and I'm here to say I'm not going away. I am the Lord's servant. I'm so honored to serve in this day and time at the capacity for which I've served. And I'm honored the few people, the very, very few, the chosen few that come to hear me every day. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm indeed the Lord's servant.